Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Steelers turning point, offense can't capitalize on end-of-half interception. Despite the lopsided yardage totals for each team, the Steelers had a real chance at winning on Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. 3 forced turnovers by the Steelers' defense kept things close, but a 15-play drive by the Cowboys sealed the deal with a go-ahead touchdown from Dak Prescott to Jalen Tolbert. Tolbert made another big play in this game. It wasn't on a scoring drive, but it flipped the field and prevented the Steelers from gaining momentum before halftime. Minkah Fitzpatrick was put in a tough spot. He initially looked at the tight end coming up the seam before realizing Tolbert was out on the boundary. By the time he arrived, it was too late, and the big play flipped the field. The team has actually excelled in the end-of-half scenarios so far this year. The Steelers have had opportunities on offense with 3 minutes or less at the end of the half in all 5 games this season. 3 of those resulted in a field goal to get some momentum into halftime, and 1 was a missed 62-yard field goal. The only one that resulted in a punt was on Sunday against the Colts, largely because of Tolbert's big play. The Steelers ended up intercepting Prescott to end that drive, but they started at their own 2-yard line instead of having a chance to ride the wave of momentum from the interception. The Cowboys only gained 22 yards on that drive outside of the 48-yard completion to Tolbert. Chances are pretty good that the Steelers could have at least tied up the game at 6-6, if not taken the lead, entering halftime. Considering they scored on the first drive of the second half, it could have been a totally different game. During his Tuesday press conference, Mike Tomlin mentioned the significance of these explosive plays. He specifically mentioned this field-flipping play as one that helped turn the tide of the game. After being one of the best defenses over the first 3 weeks, the Steelers are allowing a troubling amount of yards. A lot of that has to do with the explosive plays. They need to figure out how to clean that up so they can get back to playing complementary football with the defense setting up the offense for easier scores. Pittsburgh Steelers have new, unexpected option at outside linebacker. The Pittsburgh Steelers will be missing 3 outside linebackers against the Las Vegas Raiders after Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and DeMarvin Leal all suffered injuries. Jeremiah Moon and TJ Watt are the options on the active roster, while Ade Ogundeji and Aku Leota can give the Steelers some help off their practice squad. Until they decide what they will do with the practice squad players and if either of the injured outside linebackers will head to injured reserve, the team has decided that defensive lineman Isaiah Loudermilk will be a legitimate option on the edge for them. "We've done that in the past, and we will moving forward, obviously," head coach Mike Tomlin said about Loudermilk on the edge. "He's just a versatile guy." Loudermilk played just 1 snap on the edge while Moon and Watt played the rest of the snaps. Meanwhile, Tomlin was asked if Peyton Lison could see snaps there as someone who is built like an outside linebacker in some ways, but Tomlin threw that thought out the window. So, it appears that Loudermilk will likely be a heavier, run-down option for the Steelers rather than someone who plays there a significant portion of the time. It's the time of year when George Pickens becomes the center of Steelers discussion for the wrong reasons. And it's less about his eye black or others' face masks leaping into his hands. No, this time the subject is something he has no control over, his playing time. Pickens played under 60% of the Steelers' snaps on Sunday, and few by Mike Tomlin's explanation. He insists that, despite it being a career low and well outside Pickens' norm, it's all part of a standard rotational process. While he admitted that Pickens' efforts on his routes were a factor in wanting to manage his snaps more, he painted the prettiest picture he could to explain it. And he insists that Pickens has no problem with it. Asked on Tuesday if the third-year wide receiver has expressed any concern about his reduced workload, Tomlin said, "No, he has not, because it's been explained to him via the team's website. So he doesn't mind sitting on the bench 40% of the time, or at least understands why, I guess." Alex Kozora offered his considered thoughts on this subject. He points out that George Pickens did play on all of the team's 11 personnel snaps against the Cowboys and that his snap ratio in heavier personnel packages was at least not statistically significantly less than can be explained within a reasonable margin for error. Maybe he is right. It's hard to know until we see what happens next week, and the week after next. One possible explanation is the fact that Tomlin and the Steelers simply don't see Pickens helping them in heavier sets. And that in itself isn't a good thing, nor explicitly a bad thing. He was supposed to be this tough, physical blocker, but I guess that doesn't matter anymore. Tomlin continually struck on the point that his changing is thinking about player rotations, even citing playing Cameron Heyward less in 2024 than he might have even last year. This season, he has already allowed for a rotation at multiple offensive line positions, but that was a competitive environment. Pickens is just sitting on the bench to save up his energy, or something. I'm just more sensitive to that broader discussion. I'm sure I played Cam more last year than I'm playing them this year, for example, Tomlin said. But, of course, Heyward was injured last year. To his point, though, Heyward did play 75% of the snaps in 2022, the lowest of his career as a starter. But what Tomlin is doing with George Pickens, or at least what he is claiming, is extremely atypical. You don't see other number one receivers spending 40% of games on the bench, and this isn't theoretical. Anybody can look up snap percentages. Even Brandon Ayuk, who didn't take part in the offseason, is at 79%. And that is weighted down from only playing 60% in the 49ers opener after having not practiced all summer. Steelers' new favorites to land Davante Adams? The Pittsburgh Steelers may be the growing favorites to land Las Vegas Raiders superstar Davante Adams. Despite a loss in Week 5 against the Dallas Cowboys, Pittsburgh escaped as the least damaged team of those hunting for Adams, which may turn things in their favor. Coming into Week 5, the New York Jets and New Orleans Saints were the heavy favorites to land Adams via trade. Both teams had quarterback Adams had played for, and it was no secret they were willing to make a significant push to land him. Fast forward to the start of Week 6 and things have changed. The Jets have fired their head coach, Robert Saleh, and the Saints have lost quarterback Derek Carr to an oblique injury. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh is sitting there with a 3-2 record, a head coach everyone loves in Mike Tomlin and two now healthy starting quarterbacks in Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. According to ESPN's Adam Schefter, the shift for the Jets and Saints has impacted the trade market. I think the events in New York and the events in New Orleans may have slowed down talks with those two teams, and we'll see if and when they can pick up some steam, Schefter said. Because everybody does expect that Adams is going to be traded, we just don't know where or when. The Steelers have been in on an Adams trade since the moment he became available, and if they didn't hold back on trying to land Brandon Ayuk this summer, there's little doubt they wouldn't try to toss everything at an Adams trade. This could be heating up, as the Athletic's Diana Rossini believes the trade could go down in the next few hours. With new news on the Jets and Saints, the Steelers may have climbed to the top of the Raiders and Adams's lists. And if it's happening soon, they may finally find themselves with the second-star wide receiver they've been hunting for. And you fan? What do you think of the situation of Davante Adams? Leave your opinion in the comments.